So dear students, it is a effort to address some of your concerns related to interview. We have collected certain questions from the transcripts as well as certain probable questions from mock interviews and elsewhere. So some here a student will be asking the question, and I will try to tell you how you should be approaching this particular answer from my point of view. Fine. So now let us start.
Do you think India should withdraw its troops from the Maldives given the deadline?
Okay. So the first question, do you think India should withdraw its troops from Maldives in a given deadline? So this is an important area. All of you should be preparing the India and the neighbors. Now, if this is a question that should we withdraw or not, always stick to the principles of foreign policy, because in interview you should be talking in formal terms. You cannot be talking behind the curtain thing. So formally speaking, our foreign policy towards the neighbors is grounded on the fundamental principles of Panchashil. We believe in non-interference in the domestic affairs. We respect the sovereignty of the state. In case if Maldives is asking, definitely our formal official stand has to be, we should be ready to withdraw, but we have to see the withdrawal means it is not necessary that we have to just follow their timeline. We have to see other arrangements. We have to see our security concerns, in the sense because we have our people there. So what time India will require to withdraw in a proper sense, that we can always discuss, but in principle you should always be agreeing for withdrawal.
Given the situations like in Maldives, don't we think that India is losing out in its neighborhood?
Okay. So the question is, considering the situations in Maldives, is India losing out in neighborhood? Now, these type of questions, it should not be based on one or two events. It should not be based on a very narrow view of the things. So, how will you address? You can always say that the biggest challenge for any country's foreign policy is how to deal with the neighbors. Now, in case of India, the problem increases because of huge asymmetry in terms of size and in terms of power. Obviously, we do not have a very friendly neighborhood, also because it is not just our neighbors are here. There is a huge involvement of the external powers in the region. So, is India losing the plot? I will say no, because we may have lost a battle, but we have not lost the war. And still, what is most important is the logic of geography. If something stands true for India, that we cannot change our neighbors, we can change our friends, then that holds also for Maldives or any country. That India, in terms of its size, is not something that they can ignore for all time to come. And I don't think that India has lost everything, or we have lost all type of cards. We have also seen that there is a domestic resentment against the president of Maldives and there is a plan for bringing impeachment and these type of things. So India should use a spectrum of the options. Means India should also use its diplomatic reach, its presence, its diaspora. Let us explore, but I don't think there is any requirement or any need that India gets anxiety. We have seen a trend. We have seen a trend in Afghanistan. We have seen a trend in Nepal and other countries. And obviously, these are the smaller countries. It all depends upon our perception, how we look at these actions of the states. So a smaller state trying to make a better bargain, and of course India is quite self-sufficient to take care of its interest.
Even if the neighboring countries have the example of Sri Lanka, why do they still take a pro China stance and not come with India or accede to India's requests?
Okay, so neighboring countries have an example of Sri Lanka, where Sri Lanka had to suffer a lot because of Chinese policies of land grab and non-transparent financing. The question is why other countries in the region do not take lesson. So this particular question, you can start that I would like to answer this question on two notes. One, with your permission, and that is just for the sake of fun or humor, is that at times people do not learn by their own mistakes, and it means sometimes if we do not learn from our mistakes, of course we hardly learn from the mistakes of others. So joke apart, now Sri Lanka, learning from example of Sri Lanka, because we should stay away from generalizing the things. Each country is unique, each country has its unique national priorities, every country has its unique relations with India as well as China, every country has its priorities. So they will take action. Whenever a country takes action, it is never one or two factors. So multiple factors play the role. Hence, we cannot expect one country behaving from the way other countries, because things are quite complicated. How is the domestic structure? How is the leadership? Various factors will play the role. Anyway, whether they learn from Sri Lanka or not, what is important is that India should stick to the fundamentals of its neighborhood policy, whether it is Panchsheel, whether it is Gujarat, whether it is neighborhood first, because our actions should be according to our size, it should be according to what suits to a great power, and definitely it has to be India way. It cannot be China way. It cannot be intrusive. It cannot be something that goes against Indian ethos. So have patience. Sometimes patience is very important. It is also said that if speech is silver, then patience is golden. So at times we have to wait and watch. And once Narsimha Rao has held that not taking decision is also a decision. So now let's not take and reach to the conclusions in hurry. Okay,
Do we think that sometimes India does act like a big brother in its neighborhood?
fine. So the question is, do you think at times India behaves like a big brother in the neighborhood? Of course, there are instances where India has acted, or somehow India appeared to have acted like that. For example, the formal and informal blockade of Nepal. Whether we have acted or not, but this perception has been built, this narrative has been built, and at times we cannot help too much considering the huge asymmetry. So whatever we will do, it may appear, even in a scenario whenever we will be taking something, talking something tough, which is not as per the convenience of the developing country, of the other neighboring countries, they are going to build the narrative. And that is why what we have to do, we should not be giving any such chance. But there are few things which we cannot control. And again, I believe that as far as the neighbors are concerned, we should stick to our Gujarat doctrine, non-reciprocity, and considering the sensitivity of India's neighborhood, patience is the key.
Do you think PM Modi's opening up of Ram temple is justified and his choosing of the date of 22nd Jan when even when Shankaracharyas were opposing it?
Okay. So the first question is whether Prime Minister Modi's inauguration of Ram temple is justified or not. So why this question? Because we generally link this question with India as a secular state. But there should not be any question mark if anyone who understand the nature of Indian secularism. Our secularism is not anti-religion or religious neutrality. Our secularism is Sarva Dharma Sambhav. Now, if we talk about Ram temple, if we talk from legal point of view, it should not be seen in terms of like Prime Minister's action through the framework of religion, because Supreme Court itself has held that Hinduism is not a religion, it is a way of life. Now the another thing is, from my point of view, Ram doesn't belong to any particular religion. Ram is a part of our heritage. Ram is a representation of dharma, and dharma is the very architectonic idea of Indian society. So let us not belittle Ram. Ram is not an icon of Hindutva. Ram is a representation of India's culture, the feature of what is compassion, love, toleration, respect for the subaltern class, the weaker section. So I don't think that there is any substance in the first narrative. What was the second narrative?
About the date, whether the 22nd Jan was a suitable date.
Okay. So as far as the date is concerned, even I don't know much, but maybe I have not gone through. But if you know, then maybe the date has been according to uh, the tradition, according to the Brahmins, they must have looked for the date. So I think, because there can be different point of views which is the right date, but I think if you ask my personal opinion, I believe that for doing something good, any time is a good time. Fine, let's not be so fixated with this type of mentality. अगर अच्छा काम है तो कोई भी समय अच्छा ही है. Third part of the question.
They were the two parts. Now
Okay.
moving to another question.
You were asking Shankaracharya.
It was the part of the same question that
Okay.
Shankaracharya was opposing the date.
Shankaracharya is opposing, but fine, because within, even if we talk about Hinduism, we do not see any person in centrality. Right? We don't have any centralized church. Hinduism is about a plurality. We can have a difference of opinion, and maybe what government has decided in terms of suitability, in terms of administrative concerns, I don't know, there may be the concerns for this date, obviously, I can think is which are beyond the religious concern. There must be administrative and other concerns. Maybe we are not so much aware of it.
Yes, ma'am. Who do you think is responsible for Israel-Hamas war?
Who is responsible for Israel-Hamas war? Again, we should not be simplifying the things. As far as the immediate factor is concerned, I think Hamas is responsible, because Hamas may be thinking that the issue on which their legitimacy is based is becoming is losing its importance in geopolitics. Now the second possible country which may have benefited out of this is obviously China, because not much difference, I think, between the decision of IMEC corridor and this particular action. So obviously no one can say with surety, but China is there. And of course, why not Israel? Because up till now, the final solution is yet to come. And in a way, I will say the entire international community is responsible, because as an international community, we failed to solve this particular dispute, which is long standing and the mother of so many disputes, it should have been solved long time back. So I will not put a blame on one or two actors. I will say it's a collective failure.
How long do you think that the Israel-Hamas war can sustain, given the present scenario?
How long Israel and Hamas war can sustain given the present scenario? In these type of questions, you should try to refrain from hypothetical scenarios, because uh, you can always say with due permission, I don't want to talk about hypothetical situation, because there is no specific formula for us to tell how long the war will continue, because maybe once the Putin has started the war, he has not expected that it will continue for long. So as far as in international politics is concerned, the law of unintended consequences operate. Fine, sometimes you may think, but I believe that uh, if you take my personal opinion, war should end, because the war is taking the energy and the resources, especially energy of US. Now, US priorities is right now not a war in the Middle East. So US may take an action for reconciliation. So US priorities is China, US priority is Russia, and actually US priority is China. So even US may be willing to come out of the war from Ukraine also. And normally what happens is these type of consequential decisions come when there is a change of guards. So suppose a new leadership comes in USA, and they may make these type of decisions, like Biden made the decision for withdrawal of the troops. So I believe US will make an effort that the war should subside at earliest, because they have to focus on the Taiwan Strait.
Do you think India's support for Israel and its abstention is under Western pressure, abstention in the UN, and it is against the humanitarian considerations of Palestine?
So the question is, do you think India's support to Israel is under Western pressure? I will say no, because India has always followed a policy of strategic autonomy, and there has been too much Western pressure even in case of Ukraine, but we have not changed our stand. So whatever stand we take, this is according to our national interest. It is according to our long-term strategic interest. For India, Israel matters because our security concerns like cross-border terrorism, building missile defense, and many other areas. And again, India's decision of any cooperation, any affirmative note towards Israel should also be seen through India's position that we do not consider or differentiate between a good terrorism and a bad terrorism. Fine. So India itself, one of the worst sufferers, we can equate this entire event with 26/11 in India. And of course, Indians are emotionally impacted by any these events. So multiple factors have played the role. And of course, the Western domination is, or the Western pressure, I will say, has played the negligible role. Maybe India's long-term friendship with Israel, Israel's support to India in the critical hour, our sensitivity towards the terrorism and these type of actions may have played the role. And of course, our stand on terrorism, that stands that we do not support, and of course, we do not believe that violence is the solution.
And is it against humanitarian considerations of Palestine?
No, but humanitarian considerations cannot be an excuse to uh, to create a war, because in this way, Hamas or Palestine may have lost the legitimacy of their cause. The moment you use the violence, the legitimacy goes. So humanitarian concerns cannot be an excuse, all the time, because you are also expected to respect the humanitarian concerns of the other. So I don't think it will impact the humanitarian concern, and India has made it very clear that we make a complete segregation between the Hamas and the Palestinian people, and our solidarity with them remain, and we do not go for homogenization.
Do you think Manipur, why do you think Manipur crisis is not yet resolved? Has the state acted in the right manner so far?
Manipur crisis is yet not resolved in the sense that it is a very old issue. Entire Northeast is an old issue, and state acted in the right manner or wrong. I believe that yes, state's action, but has been right enough. Whatever state has done, and again, we should not expect that these type of crisis, which have not just the domestic angle but also the external angle, will end soon, especially when it is the elections time, and when uh, there is so much involvement of China in India's domestic affairs. So any crisis, it cannot be stopped in few minutes or in few hours. These are very sensitive issues as time proceeds, so it gets complicated. And again, uh, the inter-tribal rivalries are quite old and quite prominent. So far, I believe that the election time will remain. It will be difficult to cover up because there are so many vested interests. So one interest, and it give rise to a chain of other interest and situation. Everybody wants to take the advantage of the situation.
Why is Russia's invasion of Ukraine still going on, with Russia standing alone, and on the other hand, Western nations coming in support of Ukraine? We know that Russia's economy has been weakening, but despite all of that, how is Russia able to still sustain the war?
So Russia is able to sustain the war primarily because of China's support. And it's not only China buying Russian oil, India is also buying Russian oil. Even Europeans are also buying Russian oil. So Russia does have the resources, and the major support for Russia is, of course, China. This is one part of the question. What was the other part of your question?
How is it even sustaining when
It is
the
sustaining. Russia is a great power. Russia has a capacity to sustain, and you cannot say that uh, experienced politician like Putin will take a very uncalculated move, and Russia has to sustain. They don't have a choice. It is a do and die situation, because Russia cannot imagine a scenario where uh, Ukraine joins NATO, or it harms very significantly if Ukraine joins EU also. So I believe that whenever it is a do and die situation for your motherland, you will have to sustain. You have to have uh, extraordinary will, not which is not there in the normal situation. You have to bring, and considering Putin's background, Putin's leadership, they will sustain, because I don't think that for sustaining only you require the material resources. You require lot of willpower, lot of willingness to defend your interest, to defend your motherland.
why is Russia unflinched with Finland and now Sweden's inclusion in NATO, but it invaded Ukraine for the same reasons?
Because there is a difference in Finland and Sweden, because they are never, even when it was USSR, they were not part of USSR. They were uh, neutral countries because of being in neighborhood. Now, the type of umbilical cord type of relationship Russia and Ukraine has cannot be compared. The two are altogether different cases. And Russia's dependency on Ukraine for transit, and Ukraine has been traditionally also considered by Russia as a part of Russian Empire, and it is very critical for Russia's energy interest, which Finland is not. So Ukraine, he calls it as near abroad, and it matters. So we cannot compare the two cases.
Can we now ask on the Indian government and politics part? So, do we even need a governor given so much of friction we are witnessing between the central and state governments? And what can be done?
Yeah, we need a governor because India is a federal state. You need a head of the state. And frictions are political in nature, but political frictions cannot be the basis to bring the institutional changes of constitutional nature. And what is to be done is you have to strengthen the democratic culture in the country. This is what is expected because ultimately what Ambedkar has said, you have to follow the constitutional morality. Fine. So as far as removing the post, none of our center state commissions have ever recommended because we have a parliamentary system. What is needed is changing the practice. And if practice is not good, we cannot end up changing every institution. We need the change. We need the reforms. And the most important reform is, of course, the morality, as Ambedkar has held, because no institution can be perfect under and unless people don't try to act in an ethical manner.
Do you think that judiciary is not held properly accountable with respect to its appointments?
No, I don't think judiciary has not been held because what is the system of appointment? System of appointment, I believe that it is according to the constitution. So constitution has never given free hand to executive. Constitution said that uh, judges will be appointed by president, but after consultation with the judiciary. Why? Why judges should have a greater say? First of all, in terms of experience, and it is more important to prevent judiciary from coming under the influence of executive. So judges appointing judges is a lesser evil than the politicization of judiciary. So until unless we do not come up with any other alternative, we should ignore the possibility of anything that goes for politicization of judiciary.
Do you think there is an over centralization in Indian polity? Has the executive become stronger?
So, as far as the over centralization is concerned, these are very subjective terms. And if we go by our constitution is anyway uh, provides for a strong center, which some people call it quasi-federal, or in a more decent term, persons like Granville Austin, they call it as cooperative federalism. And as Ambedkar has also held that federation has been a administrative convenience, and our long-term aim has always been to evolve as a strong nation. And Ambedkar has also held that India is not a federation. India is a union of states. So everywhere our constitution gives greater preference to the unity. We have to evolve as a nation, and there can be other way of looking at it. Means centralization means strengthening India's identity as one nation.
After Ayodhya, now Gyanvapi in Varanasi, even Krishna Janambhoomi in Mathura, and even Lakshman Tila of Lucknow, will it not lead to a slippery slope if such ASI reports keep on coming and we keep on finding that there had been temples where today the mosque stand? What do you think as a way forward to it?
The way forward is if there are genuine grievances and if there are people's aspiration, obviously as a country every person's concern is important. Our constitution talks about respecting the human dignity. Rawls said inviolability of human dignity. We cannot say that this demand is less important, we have to stop this demand. The thing is, we have to, if there is a demand Obviously, we have to go scientifically towards the process. We have to trust our institutions for dispute resolution. You should go to the judicial route, which can develop the consensus and the confidence. I don't see that in democracy we should fear for the slippery slope. Rather, we should respect people's aspirations. But obviously, it should not be based on any vague criteria. It should be based on some solid scientific criteria. And we should be doing justice with everyone. Okay, fine. So I think we will end for today, and hope this interaction would help you in framing your answers. We'll come back with few more questions after this. Thank you.